process, people-to-people links, training, infrastructure, exercises and operations. Across the 5 lines of effort, there are Track 1 initiatives where a special effort will be undertaken to achieve change, such as conferences, mentoring and development activities. So, as we know, when introducing a new capability or challenging existing norms, there are always many lessons learned. Well, it is no different with mainstreaming gender considerations in the military. So in the interest of time, 3 main ones I want to share with you today are, firstly, don't stereotype gender. Mainstreaming is critical to ensuring a gender perspective is applied across all elements of the planning and execution phase. This was by far the biggest lesson learned from exercise housings at 15. In order to do this effectively, this requires the commander and other planning staff to be educated on the role of the gender advisor and how to apply gender perspective to their individual planning functions. Secondly, to stop gender being viewed in isolation, it is essential that gender groupings and taskings are included in the main body of an operations order and not only in the end. Lesson 2. Strategic direction in the form of guided documents and doctrine is critical to gain buy-in from these stakeholders. Our ADF planning staff are limited by time, budget and competing training requirements. Without this strategic guidance, it will be very challenging to get gender included. Finally, leadership. Strong, committed leadership is essential to achieving gender mainstreaming in the military. Leaders who are able to challenge norms and influence behaviours through role modelling and education are critical to long-term success. We are very fortunate that our senior leadership in the Australian Defence Force is not only committed, but is able to fully articulate to the workforce the capability that gender can provide to operations. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your time today. It's a pleasure to speak to you, and I'm very happy to take any questions that you may have.
Okay. Thank you too. Now I will pass the microphone to our moderator.
The moderator is coming. Okay. Thank you very much. What's the name?
Commander Kinnan.
We thank her very much for her presentation. Apparently, you're going to.
Thank you.
Well,
We can wait for questions now.
we recognize that Australia has been probably more forward into the implementation than most, at least European countries that I know of. We're not talking about the rest of the world. Questions? Do we have questions? Nobody wants to ask yet.
May I?
Yes.
Do this.
Please.
Shall I use the microphone?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Maybe it's better to ask the question and
Okay.
repeat for the meeting.
Since I'm very glad that we have a colleague from Australia today, we are really having opportunity to speak on issues. I have read something that Australian forces were engaged with what's called the new doctrine of responsibility to protect, but in the prevention cluster, because responsibility to protect is based on 3 clusters, and the second one is prevention. So I would like, if our colleague is active in that field, also has some information to share with us the preventive, the role of women in preventive operations, to share some Australian experience if possible. Thank you.
Okay. So the question from the audience is from Ms. Vesna Popovska from the International University in Macedonia. And her question is, can you share a bit of the Australian experience of the inclusion of women in preventive operations? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, are you talking in the context of our own staff? Yes?
I'm not listening properly.
So, we season, high-risk area for seasonal weather events. So we've had a couple of very big weather events over the last couple of years, one in Vanuatu, but more recently in Fiji. So the next disaster that occurred in Fiji was our first opportunity to send a gender-replaced men contingency exercise as part of the establishing caucus. And that gender advisor went in there with a specific mandate to engage with the local NGOs and the local populace to assist in, I guess it's not more of a conflict, it's more in the HRDR space, so the humanitarian and disaster relief space, but certainly to help to provide that feedback to the humanitarian and that comfort, as you would, to be able to identify when the military put their efforts to assist in that kind of rebuilding of that country. So that's probably our most recent real life regional example of who actually puts together and provides capability. That has proved to be quite successful. Certainly on our operations, so we have a couple of gender buses deployed. One in Afghanistan, and we've got one operating out of the Middle East. And I guess at the moment, certainly the one that's deployed to the Middle East area of operations is really focusing on still delivering education to our own staff, not leaving out there and having as much of a role in the prevention as we would like. And certainly in Afghanistan, we've had Australian women operating as part of female engagement teams and cultural support teams as part of the wider mission as required. Does that answer the question? Yes?
Yes.
Right.
We'll ask for some more questions if there.
Can I ask a question?
Yes. Maybe if you use the microphone, she can hear you.
Okay. I'll ask a probably irrelevant question, but maybe it is relevant. I read that Australia has appointed an ambassador for women and children and girls. Is that correct? And I understand that this is related to the implementation of the gender perspective.
Sorry. Yes, it is related to Australia. So our Department of Foreign Affairs obviously very heavily committed as part of the National Action Plan, the whole of government. And we're actually really fortunate that our Foreign Affairs Minister is a woman. And we also have the Minister for Women, the Ambassador for Women and Girls. And absolutely that is a focus of the National Action Plan. So that's a very positive role there for us.
Okay.
You can use the phone. Okay. More questions?
More questions?
Okay.
I guess we don't have any more questions.
Okay, that's all. Thank you very much. And hope to see you in person next time.
I'd love to. Sorry. But
Bye.
Lovely. That was very interesting. The perspective from the other side of the world. You can hear me, right?
I'm supposed to be working today.
I don't know. Can I invite now Miss Milskamp and Miss Solanas? Did I pronounce your name right? The Solanas is it. And let's hear the other sides. What have we all been doing? Ms. Rilsk, I think you have the floor.
Okay. Should I use the microphone or?
If you want. If
It
you
should
can.
be working, just press the button.
If it works.
Does that work?
Working.
No. Yeah. Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, I'm honored to be here. Especially since I'm going to bring a very different perspective. We've heard a lot about military and that kind of thing, and that's not what I work with. I work with rural women in civilian situations. So I will kind of look into that and also bring my researcher perspective, which is very different from what you're used to probably. Best practice is not a word that researchers like to use, particularly not the ones engaged in such notions as peace or sustainability, because those are not something that you can define or that can ever be done. So we really take that as a procedural element, and we look at it as how do we progress, where do we come from, where do we go. So we do a lot of historical studies as well as current elements. One such procedural idea is that of resilience. Borrowed from ecological science, the term has become rather prominent in social studies as well, often used to express the ability of social groups and entire societies to withstand attacks on their systems, bounce back from them, or adapt to new circumstances. As Neil Edger points out in his article on social and ecological resilience, and I quote, "The resilience of institutions and other forms of social order is based on their inclusivity and how effective they are in oiling the wheels of society." Working for the German Association of Rural Women, I became familiarized with an institution that has been extremely resilient throughout various challenges, and that stands, and I believe that, and I'm proud to say so, out in both its capability to withstand and bounce back, as well as its ability to adapt to new ways. This institution, that of the lady farmer herself, as much as that of her networks, is prevalent in all cultures and societies. Rural women are an integral part in the build-up of any community, taking on various roles from nurturer, caretaker, gardener, and nurse to manager and farmer. Thus, while the example of the German lady farmer may not apply in all its forms to other nations, the institution exists in almost all cultures, and there are many parallels in their construction. And I will come back to that later. But why use the lady farmer as an emblem of resilience, you may wonder. I will try to illustrate how German rural women have exhibited their resilience over the over times of war and times of peace. And then I will come to a project by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Development that tries to make use of this kind of best practice example to change the way that development aid is used in compliance with the Resolution 1325 and the German Federal Action Plan. Because it is the belief of the German government that in strengthening, educating, and empowering women in their communities, these communities can become innovative, lasting, and sustainable. They become resilient in the best sense of the word. But obviously, to state such a fact is not enough. So let me try and convince you of this statement. Without going too much into detail, I will try and recount two historical instances of Germany's own past before turning to the program I before mentioned. Long before the Resolution 1325 or any of its follow-ups were even discussed in the UN Security Council, the Allied forces occupying Germany realized the potential of rural organizations for the redevelopment of post-conflict Germany. In post-Second World War Germany, the circumstances were as dire as in any conflict today. The rising food shortage and the influx of refugees gave rise to a supply crisis of new dimensions. As most of the male labor force was unavailable and most of the machinery was either lost or stolen in the war, farm women had to pick up the slack. They used tools from the last centuries and had to organize themselves. Not an easy task, in a chaotic post-conflict circumstance that left them without protection from raids and assaults, as well as in constant fear of having their land and houses seized from them, as many of them were not legal proprietors of the farms they worked on. Consequently, they had to rely on other means than the state or even, in the beginning, the Allied forces to keep their families from starving and their farms from perishing. Although they risked draconian punishments, most rural women secretly slaughtered and sold their product or traded them for whatever they needed most. Knowing that they were at the constant risk of losing their farms and livelihood they tried to maintain, farm women still did their utmost to feed not just their families, but also took in refugees and returning soldiers, making themselves quickly indispensable for peace-building efforts. With tens of thousands of refugees, soldiers, and former forced labor on the move, farms, next to being used as refugee camps, were at constant risk of being raided. And women remaining on the farms were often at a high risk of being violated and exploited both sexually and as cheap labor. As they were cut off from most means of transportation security or regulation of social order, the women not only traded and exchanged produce, but also information, emotional, physical, and as well as mental support in these black markets. The black markets were but the latest form of the informal networks which had been cultivated over centuries as a means by which rural women ensured continuous independence in an increasingly patriarchal society. A bit of background in that claim. Prior to industrialization and really any form of modern society, agricultural society had been mostly oriented towards subsistence rather than that of profit. Thus most farms were able to produce whatever they needed on their own, leaving only a small percentage of their harvest to trade for the products they had to obtain in regional markets. Such trading was often left to women.